not going to say the line.
Why not? You're so good at it.
All right, welcome to Motivational Overview.
Why don't you just say the line?
All right, welcome to Motivational Overview Mondays, which is what this is called until I can figure out a better name. Today, I wanted to show you guys my ARX made by Beretta. So this is a pretty cool gun, and it's kind of a sleeper. I think a lot of people, generally speaking, pay attention to, the ACR, the SCAR, I don't know, there's like a bunch of Generation 3 piston-driven folding rifle guns out there that are much more popular than the Beretta ARX. But in my opinion, it's one of the coolest ones out there. And, it's a spaghetti gun, it's Beretta. Come on.
I'm making the pizza.
Come on, the Beretta's a good one.
Hey. Beretta.
Yeah, okay, we're racist. I wanted to show you guys the Beretta ARX. This one is it's actually an SBR, so I actually had it chopped down. The original ones come in 16-inch standard configuration, and they also have a 22 variation out there. The interesting thing about the Berettas is that the military version, normally they would come in radically different barrel lengths than the ones that are available on the civilian market. When you buy an ARX, it comes in the 16-inch length, and they also make ones that are factory SBR and 10.5-inch barrel, as well as I think they sell different barrels separately. I actually had mine cut down to 12 inches exactly, not 12.5. And it's because the Italian military, at least according to their listings, show that they use 16-inch and 12-inch guns. I don't know why those specific lengths are chosen. Because it's a relatively unique gun, I would say them choosing those barrel lengths, they must have some reason for that. I do wish that I had both lengths to swap back and forth between, and I'll kind of show you why later. But generally speaking, having the 12-inch one is a pretty cool vibe. So let's get into the gun, and I'm going to go tip to butt as usual. We're going to start with my suppressor here. This is a Knights Armament NT4 suppressor. Now, this doesn't really have anything to do with the Beretta ARX, but great can for 5.56, pretty old design, and I'm rocking it on top of the standard NT4 flash hider, which it basically just looks like a regular A2 birdcage, but this one is cut for the NT4, so it is actually compatible, whereas a regular NT4 would not be. There's a bunch of other muzzle devices that are out there that will also work with the NT4 suppressor, but this one just kind of gives it that classic sort of A2 military style look. Right behind it, I have the Surefire dual fuel flashlight, and I'm actually running it very simply. This gun is more of like your keep it simple build where I just have, a light and a red dot. So that way I can just grab it and it's ready to go. No frills or anything like that. So I've got my push button back here, so no tape switches or anything, just to keep everything simple. And because it's on a pro mount, then I can kind of rotate it to the exact position that I want it to be in. I have it mounted up on a Sierra Tac 2-point sling up front. And this is just their standard black color. It's padded. It's one of my favorite slings. I pretty much use it on almost all of my guns. And I just have it looped through the sling loop on the front. And the sling loop actually swivels left and right. So if you so desire to mount it on the other side, it just swivels over to the other side. The thing that irks me about this gun, and it's really my main complaint, is that the sling placement for it is terrible.
Bro, I'm straight up not having a good time.
I think they probably have some kind of a proprietary sling system that they use, because all of the positions that you would mount a sling to it does not work with any modern solutions. So QD cups or anything like that, they don't have any provisions to mount any kind of modern sling usage without just jankily adding paracord into these like weird little flats. So these flats right here, so there's one here, and then there's also one here, and they have them on both sides. So you can see right here and here. They're actually not wide enough to allow a 1-inch sling to thread through, which is quite annoying. And they're also they look like they're placed in optimal places to mount a sling to it, but I don't really think that it's a very usable position. Right now, I'm actually using a QD cup in the rear, but we'll get to that a little bit later. But generally speaking, that's really my only major complaint about this gun that's not really fixable. Right now, where it's at, it works okay in the 2-point position, and I can still use it folded like this. So it's not like a total loss, but it's definitely something that I think could be improved on the gun.
I think a big piece of pasta lips through those loops down there.
Bow tie.
Linguini.
Moving on from there, basically the entire gun is just the ARX. So the only thing I've really modified to the actual firearm is just cutting down the barrel to 12 inches and then just rethreading it for the muzzle device. The gun itself, though, like I said, runs very well. And one of the things about the ARX is that it's relatively unique in that it's one of the only truly ambi guns on the market. A lot of guns will boast, hey, you know, we have ambi controls on our guns and it's just the selector and the mag release. But this gun truly does have fully ambi controls. Let's actually get into that. You have your safety, which is ambi. That's, I think, the minimal thing that you really need to have a gun be ambi, if you're gonna call it that. Having the mag release on both sides is also one of those things where I'd say that's, I wouldn't say it's entirely necessary, but it's definitely a nice feature to have. You got your push button mag release right here, and the controls are very similar to an AR in that way with where your mag release and your selector is. Here's where it gets a little bit more interesting. This little lever right here is a bolt hold open and it is a bolt release. It's got a little charging handle right here, really small one. I'm gonna go ahead and lock it open. So you just pull it to the rear, push up, and it allows you to lock it open. And this lever is on both sides. So you can release the bolt with this little lever, and you can also lock it open. You just push down and then that closes the bolt. Now, this lever here is also reversible. So it's not on both sides, but you can actually reverse the lever through the ejection port to the other side if you want the charging handle to be on the left or the right side. And you can do this without tools. So that's the other thing about this gun, is that everything that relates to using the gun is very user serviceable with no tools in the field. So a lot of times, you know, you'll have to have some kind of tool to work on your guns. This one, everything can be done without tool. Like, for example, this is also one of the only guns that I know that allows you to have ambi ejection. So right now I have it set up to be right hand eject, but this little hole right here, if you push a bullet tip through one side or the other, it will allow you to change the ejection pattern to be on the left side or the right side. So if you are a left-handed shooter, you prefer to eject on this side, all you do is take a bullet, push it through that tip. So technically you need a tool, but you already, I assume, have bullets with you. So you can just push into that hole and it will change your ejection pattern to left or right, depending on which one you want. Basically, the controls on this gun, totally 100% ambidextrous, which I think is kind of the special thing about it. There's a lot of guns out there that, you know, they will have some basic ambi controls, but they just don't have the level of ambi that you're going to get out of the ARX. The other thing that's very unique about this gun is the barrel is hot swappable, also without tools, which is very unusual for these kind of guns, especially because you can actually pop the barrel out and put it back in and retain a 4 MOA hold, which is basically M4 spec, and you don't actually need to have tools and it's not held in by screws or anything like that. So let me demonstrate how you remove the barrel. I'm gonna lock this open. So with the bolt locked open, it's almost like a Glock where you just hold these tabs down and pull the barrel, and the barrel assembly comes out. So you got your piston, your barrel. The other part of it is this is part of how you change the caliber out. So they do offer this gun in 300 blackout, 5.56, as well as 7.62 by 39. So if you were to do any caliber changes, or if you wanted to switch the barrel out for a different barrel length, then basically you can just switch the barrel out without any tools on the field, which is very cool. So the barrel just goes right in like this and slam it in. It's locked in place, and then you just drop the bolt and you're good to go. So for example, if you have the 16-inch barrel and you wanted to put this into a smaller bag with the stock folded and the barrel out of the gun, so let's say you don't have a flashlight that's sticking out past the end of the receiver here, you can actually have a 16-inch barrel next to the gun inside some kind of a bag, and I think the overall length is about 19 inches, which fits into very, very small bags. So for transportation purposes, even if you have a full-length 16-inch barrel, being able to pull it out and just pop it right back in and open the stock, you're ready to go. So that is kind of a relatively unique feature of the gun. The gas piston does have 2 positions, one for neutral and then one for suppressor use. So that is kind of nice, shooting with a suppressor and having it on the suppressed mode. It's actually pretty pleasant to shoot, but a lot of piston guns, have the same kind of function. But they did include that. So for example, like the Scar, you have to actually change out some parts on it for it to be suppressor capable, I suppose, whereas they've kind of thought of that and put that into the build. The attachment point on the rear here is an IWC QD socket. This is the best way I've found to mount a sling to it. There's probably some better option out there, or maybe a different sling that works better with it, but honestly, that's the best way to go from what I've found. I am rocking a Steiner R1X optic, and it's kind of funny because the reason why I chose to mount this optic to this gun is because it kind of gives it a pseudo future look, especially with this weird plate thing right here. Granted, the Steiner R1X isn't actually that good of an optic for the money that you pay. However, Beretta does advertise Steiner because, they're very friendly between the 2 companies. So there's a lot of advertising and marketing that goes around having this optic on this gun. As for whether it is a good optic for it, I would say but I just think it looks cool, and this is one of my secondary guns that I just have ready to go for whatever, but I don't really go to it directly. So not necessarily something where I have to have something too crazy on it. And so most of this is kind of aesthetics and just for fun. There is something that's weird about the ARX is that when it comes to you out of the box, if you buy the standard rifle, it does not come with this little Picatinny rail on the bottom. You would think that that would make a lot of sense because it has a full Picatinny top rail and Picatinny side rails, but it doesn't come with a Picatinny rail here. What it does come with is a little cover that basically just has a slant. So it's almost just like a dust cover, and a little bit of Picatinny is exposed at the very front, which in my opinion is almost kind of useless if you're going to put any kind of control or vertical grip system here. So you do need to buy that as a separate accessory. Beretta sells this. It's like 30 bucks. So in the grand scheme of things, I don't really think it's that big of a deal to purchase it separately and just install it. However, I can see why they did it, because if you actually have access to the ARX grenade launcher, this pin right here, which is almost like a takedown pin on an AR, you just push this pin in, you pop it out, and you slide this rail off. The grenade launcher actually will slide off of the standalone mount, and it will slide right onto the factory rails that are built in. But because we live in America, we can't own foreign grenade launchers. So there's a feature on this gun that allows you to mount a grenade launcher you can't legally own. Make sense? That's kind of a weird thing about the ARX, but I have actually played with this system, and it's very cool because most of the other systems on the market in terms of mounting grenade launchers, it's a relatively complex system, or it just takes a lot of weird extra things like tools or extra manipulations to get the grenade launcher to mount. Whereas this one, off of the single takedown pin, you just slide the launcher on, pop the pin in, we're good to go. So I think that overall, there's a lot of really great design that goes into this gun. I just think that the timing of their release and their marketing wasn't that great. So this is kind of one of those sleeper guns that people just don't know very much about.
Does that grenade launcher launch meatballs?
Yes, sir.
Yahoo!
All right, and the last few things on here that I didn't really touch yet, I used the HK translucent magazines. I just think because it kind of adds to that pseudo futuristic look. They also work with standard GI magazines and Gen 2 PMags. Unfortunately, Gen 3 PMags do not work in this gun because of the shape of the lower receiver here. You can either file out this section of the lower receiver to essentially allow Gen 3 overstop tabs to access the magwell, or you can modify the magazines. I think it's much easier just to cut down your receiver. There are a lot of mags that will just go right in it, especially if you use GI magazines. They work just fine. And the last thing would be this little Kydex cover. Now, the gun itself, I think, looks kind of funky if you don't have this cover piece. The funny thing is, I actually don't remember where I got this cover piece. It's just some random dude on eBay who makes accessories for for these. The Beretta ARX actually has a lot of aftermarket support, but you have to go through unconventional means to get them. So there's an aftermarket, really nice trigger that this guy makes, but he only sells them on forums. So you have to go and look for like the forums and then find his like janky, outdated website or DM him through the forums to purchase it. But apparently there's a really nice trigger for it because the factory trigger is, I would compare it to a mil-spec AR trigger. It's not the best and you're not going to get really great performance out of it, but there is an aftermarket option. It's just a kind of weird one. So same thing with this. This cheek riser kind of gives it sort of the ARX scar-ish kind of look. So if you don't have it on there, it has a very weird low cheek angle. So this may not work for a lot of people. If you're used to using fast height stuff or, higher mounted optics, which this gun, when it came out at that time, everybody was just using lower 1/3 height. So it was very unusual to have high mounted optics. So this may feel unnatural for people who just like the normal height stuff. For me, it's not that big of a deal because I already shoot with tall mounts for night vision. So not a huge deal. However, aesthetically, I just think it looks better with this piece of plastic on here. I should probably glue it on there. But once again, I'm kind of like, I don't really use this gun all the time. And it's very sturdy for where it's at right now, but it gives a nice look to it. And so it kind of gives it a different profile. So I do appreciate that. And you can basically just take a piece of Kydex and heat it up and bend it into the shape that you want, and then just secure it with some 3M tape or something. So there's plenty of options out there. That's pretty much the entire build for what I've got for this ARX. I actually really like shooting it. It's a very pleasant gun to shoot. And honestly, like I said, it's a sleeper build. You would just never see it coming.
Never know what hit 'em.
But all of the features that are built in on it, the quick change barrel system to go over again, and the full ambi controls with the ambi ejection, that's great for just handing out to anybody who just needs a good quality rifle that's ready to go. I've shot thousands of rounds to this thing and it's still trucking, and I barely ever clean it, which you should. I would say this is an excellent platform if you're looking to get into a piston folding gun, especially because you can shoot it folded. So that's a huge advantage over, having an AR-15 or something that doesn't fold. So if you're looking for those features, this is actually an awesome contender. I just wouldn't discount it entirely over getting something else. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate you guys just following along and checking out these guns that I've come across that I'm personally using as well. So if you want to see more stuff, go hit up our Instagram. You can check out more information on there. If you have any questions about the build, just put it in the comments below. I'll try to answer those for you if you get a chance to. If you want to see more, just let me know. Thanks for watching.
Let's support.
I'm gone. I'm all over it.